2 Samuel chapter 14. Now Joab son of Zeruiah perceived that the king's heart was on Absalom. So Joab sent word to Tekoa and brought a wise woman from there. He said to her, "Please pretend to be a mourner and put on mourning clothes. Do not anoint yourself with oil, but be like a woman who has been mourning for many days for the dead. Then go to the king and speak to him these words." Then Joab put the words in her mouth. When the woman of Tekoa spoke to the king, she fell on her face to the ground, bowed down, and said, "Help, O king." "What's the matter with you?" the king said to her. "Truly, I am a widow. My husband is dead," she said. "Your handmaid had two sons, but the two of them fought with each other in the field, where there was no one to separate them. So one struck the other and killed him. And behold, the whole clan has risen against your handmaid and said, 'Hand over the one who struck down his brother, so we may put him to death for the life of his brother whom he slew.' So they will also destroy the heir and extinguish my one remaining ember, leaving to my husband neither name nor remnant on the face of the earth." Then the king said to the woman, "Go to your home. I will issue an order concerning you." The woman of Tekoa said to the king, "My lord the king, let the iniquity be on me and on my father's house, but may the king and his throne be innocent." "Whoever speaks to you," the king said, "bring him to me, and he shall not touch you any more." "Please let the king remember Adonai your God," she said, "so that the avenger of blood does not destroy any more, so they won't destroy my son. As Adonai lives," he said, "not one hair of your son will fall to the ground." Then the woman said, "Please let your handmaid speak a word to my lord the king." "Say on," he said. The woman said, "Why have you devised a situation just like this against God's people? For by speaking this word, the king is like the guilty one, by not bringing back the one he banished. For we will all surely die and be like water split on the ground that cannot be gathered up again. Yet God does not take away life, but rather he devises plans so that a banished person may not remain an outcast from them. Now the reason I came to speak this word to my lord the king is because the people have made me afraid. So your handmaid thought, I must speak to the king. Perhaps the king will fulfill the request of his maidservant. Surely the king will hear to deliver his maidservant from the hand of the one who would eliminate both me and my son together out of the inheritance of God. Then your handmaid also thought, please let the word of my lord the king bring relief. For like an angel of God, so is my lord the king to discern good and evil. So may Adonai your God be with you." Then the king answered and said to the woman, "Please do not hide anything from me concerning what I am about to ask you. Please let my lord the king speak," the woman said. Then the king said, "Is the hand of Joab with you in all this? As your soul lives, my lord the king." The woman answered, "No one can turn to the right or to the left from anything that my lord the king has spoken. Yes, your servant Joab was the one who commanded me and put all these words in the mouth of your handmaid. Your servant Joab did this thing in order to bring about a change in the situation, but my lord is wise like the wisdom of an angel of God to know all that goes on in the land." Then the king said to Joab, "Behold, now I will do this thing, so go, bring the young man Absalom back." Joab fell on his face to the ground and prostrated himself and blessed the king. Then Joab said, "Today your servant knows that I found favor in your eyes, my lord the king, since the king has done the word of your servant." So Joab got up, went to Geshur, and brought Absalom to Jerusalem. However, the king said, "He may go directly to his house, but he may not see my face." So Absalom went directly to his own house and did not see the king's face. Now in all Israel there was none as handsome as Absalom, so highly praised. From the sole of his foot to the crown of his head there was no blemish in him. When he cut a hair of his head, at the end of every year he would cut it because the hair got so heavy on him that he had to cut it. The weight of the hair from his head was 200 shekels by the royal weight, 5 pounds. To Absalom were born 3 sons and 1 daughter, whose name was Tamar. She was a beautiful woman. Now Absalom had lived 2 full years in Jerusalem, but he never saw the king's face. Then Absalom sent for Joab in order to send him to the king, but he was unwilling to come to him. So he sent word again a second time, but he still would not come. So he said to his servants, "See, Joab's field is next to mine, and he has barley there. Go and set it on fire." So Absalom's servants set the field on fire. Then Joab arose, came to Absalom at his house, and said to him, "Why have your servants set my field on fire?" "Look, I sent word to you," Absalom said to Joab, saying, "Come here, that I may send you to the king to say, 'Why have I come from Geshur? It would be better for me if I were still there.' So now let me see the king's face, and if there is iniquity in me, let him put me to death." So Joab went to the king and told him. When he summoned Absalom, he came to the king and bowed down to his face to the ground before the king. And then the king kissed Absalom. Chapter 15. Now it came about after this that Absalom provided himself with a chariot, horses, and 50 men as runners before him. Absalom used to rise up early and stand beside the road to the city gate. Whenever anyone had a suit to come to the king for justice, then Absalom would call to him and say, "What town are you from?" Should he answer, "Your servant is from one of the tribes of Israel," Absalom would say to him, "See, your claims are good and right, but there is no one assigned to you by the king to hear you." Moreover, Absalom would say, "If only I were appointed judge in the land, then every man who has any suit or case would come to me, and I would get him justice." Also, whenever anyone approached to bow to him, he would stretch out his hand, take hold of him, and kiss him. So Absalom kept doing this to every one of Israel who came to the king for judgment. Thus Absalom stole the hearts of the people of Israel. At the end of 40 years, Absalom said to the king, "Please let me go to Hebron and pay my vow which I have vowed to Adonai, for your servant vowed a vow while I was still living in Geshur and Aram, saying, 'If Adonai will indeed bring me back to Jerusalem, then I will serve Adonai.'" So the king said to him, "Go in shalom." Then he rose and went to Hebron, but Absalom sent spies to all the tribes of Israel to say, "As soon as you hear the sound of the shofar, then you are to say, 'Absalom has become king in Hebron.'" Now 200 men from Jerusalem went with Absalom, who were invited and were going innocently, knowing nothing of the situation. Also Absalom sent for Ahithophel the Gilonite, David's counselor from his town Gilo, while he was offering the sacrifice. So the conspiracy gained momentum, for the people following Absalom continued to increase. Then a messenger came to David, saying, "The hearts of the men of Israel are following Absalom." Then David said to all his officials who were with him in Jerusalem, "Arise and let us flee, or else none of us will escape from Absalom. Leave in haste, or else he will overtake us and quickly and bring disaster down on us and strike the city with the edge of the sword." Then the king's officials said to the king, "Behold, your servant are ready to do whatever our lord the king chooses." So the king set out, and his entire household followed him. But the king left behind 10 concubines to take care of the palace. As the king went out and all the people after him, they paused at the last house. All his servants passed on beside him. All the Cherethites, all the Pelethites, and all the Gittites, 600 men that had come after him from Gath, passed on before the king. Then the king said to Ittai the Gittite, "Why should you also go with us? Go back and stay with the king, for you are a foreigner and also an exile from your own place. Your arrival was only yesterday. Should I make you wander around with us today to go wherever I may go? Go back and take your kinsmen back with you. Kindness and truth be with you." But Ittai answered the king and said, "As Adonai lives, and as my lord the king lives, surely in whatever place my lord the king will be, whether for death or for life, and there also will your servant be." So Adonai said to Ittai, "Go on and cross over." So Ittai the Gittite passed on with all his men and all the little children who were with him. While all the country was weeping with a loud voice, all the people were crossing over as the king was crossing over Kidron Valley. So all the people crossed over toward the road of the wilderness. Then behold, Zadok also came, and all the Levites with him, carrying the ark of the covenant of God. They set down the ark of God. Then Abiathar came up, until all the people had passed by out of the city. But the king said to Zadok, "Return the ark of God to the city. If I find favor in Adonai's eyes, he will bring me back and let me see it and his dwelling. But if he says thus, I have no delight in you, here I am, let him do to me as seems good in his eyes." The king also said to Zadok the priest, "Do you not see? Return to the city in Shalom, with your 2 sons with you, Ahimaaz, your son, and Jonathan's son Abiathar. See, I will wait at the fords of the wilderness until word comes from you to inform me." Therefore Zadok and Abiathar carried the ark of God back to Jerusalem, and they remained there. Then David continued to go up the ascent of the Mount Olives, weeping as he ascended. He had his head covered and was walking barefoot. So all the people with him each covered his head, and as they went up, weeping as they ascended. Then someone told David, saying, "Ahithophel is among the conspirators with Absalom." So David prayed, "Adonai, please turn the counsel of Ahithophel into foolishness." Then David went on until he reached the summit, where God was worshipped. And behold, Hushai the Archite met him with his coat rent and dust on his head. David said to him, "If you pass on with me, then you will be a burden to me. But if you return to the city and say to Absalom, I will be your servant, O king, I will your father's servant from then. But now I will be your servant, and you can thwart Ahithophel's counsel for me. Won't you have with you Zadok and Abiathar the Kohanim there? So whatever you hear from the royal palace, you should report it to Zadok and Abiathar the Kohanim. See, they have their 2 sons with them there, Zadok's son Ahimaaz and Abiathar's son Jonathan. By them you can send to me everything you hear." So David's friend Hushai reached the city just as Absalom was entering Jerusalem. Chapter 16. Now when David had passed a little beyond the summit, there was Ziba the servant of Mephibosheth to meet him with a pair of saddle donkeys, and on them 200 loaves of bread, 100 clusters of raisins, 100 fig cakes, and a bottle of wine. So the king asked Ziba, "What are you doing with these?" Ziba said, "The donkeys are for the king's household to ride on, the bread and the figs are for the young men to eat, and the wine is for anyone who faints in the wilderness to drink." Then the king asked, "And where is your master's son?" "Well, he's staying in Jerusalem," Ziba said to the king, for he said, "Today the house of Israel will restore to me the kingdom of my father." Then the king said to Ziba, "Behold, all that belongs to Mephibosheth is yours." "I bow low," Ziba said. "Let me find favor in your eyes, my lord the king." When King David arrived at Bahurim, behold, just coming out from there was a man of the family of the house of Shaul. His name was Shimei, son of Gera. As he came out, he kept on cursing and flinging stones at David, at all King David's servants, while all the people and all the mighty men were at his right hand and on his left. Thus Shimei said as he cursed, "Get out, get out, the man of bloodshed, the good for nothing. Adonai has returned on you all the blood of Shaul's house, in whose place you've reigned. Adonai has handed the kingdom over to your son Absalom to see. So see, your own evil has overtaken you, because you are a man of bloodshed." Then Abishai, son of Zeruiah, said to the king, "Why let this dead dog curse my lord the king? Let me go over now and take off his head." But the king said, What have I to do with you, son of Zeruiah? If he curses, it's because Adonai has said to him, Curse David. So who should say, Why did you do so? Then David said to Abishai and to all his officials, Look, my son, who came from my own body, is seeking my life. How much more this Benjamite? Leave him alone and let him curse, since Adonai has told him. Perhaps Adonai will look on my affliction and return good to me for his cursing this day. So David and his men continued the way, while Shimei kept walking alongside the hill parallel with him, cursing as he walked, casting stones at him and throwing dirt. Finally, the king and all the people that were with him arrived weary, so he refreshed him there. Meanwhile, Absalom and all the people of the men of Israel arrived in Jerusalem. Ahithophel was with him. Now when David's friend Hushai the Archite came to Absalom, Hushai said to Absalom, Long live the king, long live the king. But Absalom said to Hushai, Is this your loyalty to your friend? Why did you not go with your friend? No, said Hushai to Absalom, for the one whom Adonai has chosen, as well as these people, all the men of Israel, his I will be, and with him I will stay. Besides, whom should I serve? Shouldn't I be in the presence of his son? As I have served in your father's presence, so I will be in your presence. When Absalom said to Ahithophel, Give your counsel, what should we do? So Ahithophel said to Absalom, Go to your father's concubines, whom he has left to take care of the palace. Then all Israel will hear that you have made yourself abhorrent to your father in the hands of all who are with you. You will also be strengthened. So they pitched a tent for Absalom on the roof, and Absalom went to his father's concubines in the sight of all Israel. Now in those days the counsel that Ahithophel gave was like inquiring for the word of God. So was all of Ahithophel's counsel, both with David and with Absalom. Chapter 17. Moreover, Ahithophel said to Absalom, Let me now choose 12,000 men, and I will arise and pursue David tonight. I will attack him while he is weary and weak-handed, and terrify him so that all the people that are with him will flee. Then I will strike down the king when he is alone. Then I will bring all the people back to you, when all will have returned except the man you are seeking. Then all the people will be at peace. Now the plan seemed right in the eyes of Absalom and all the elders of Israel. Then Absalom said, Call now Hushai the Archite also. Let's hear what he has to say as well. When Hushai came to Absalom, Absalom spoke to him, saying, This is what Ahithophel has advised. Should we follow his counsel? If not, you will speak. So Hushai said to Absalom, This time the counsel that Ahithophel has given is not good. Hushai then added, You know your father and his men. They are mighty men, and they are embittered in their souls like a bear robbed of her cubs in the wild. Your father is an expert in warfare, and won't spend the night with the troops. Even now he must be hiding in one of the caves or in some other place. So if he were to fall on them at first, whoever hears of it would say, There's a slaughter among the people following Absalom. Then even one who is valiant, whose heart is like the heart of a lion, will utterly melt away. For all Israel knows that your father is a mighty warrior, and those who are with him are valiant men. Instead, I counsel that all Israel be gathered all together to you, from Dan to Beersheba, as abundant as the sand by the sea, and that you personally go into the battle. Then we will come upon him in one of the places where he can be found, and will fall upon him as dew falls on the ground. None will be left of all the men who are with him, not even one. Moreover, if he withdraws into a city, then all Israel will bring ropes to that city and drag it into the valley until not even one small stone will be found there. Then Absalom and all the men of Israel said, The counsel of Hushai the Archite is better than the counsel of Ahithophel. For Adonai had ordained to thwart Ahithophel's good counsel, so that Adonai might bring evil upon Absalom. Then Hushai said to Zadok and Abiathar the Kohanim, This and that is what Ahithophel counseled Absalom and the elders of Israel, and this and that is what I advised. Now therefore send word quickly and tell David, saying, don't spend the night at the fords in the wilderness, but by all means cross over, or else the king and all the people with him may be swallowed up. Now Jonathan and Ahimaaz were staying at En Rogel, and a maidservant used to go and pass information along to them. Then they would go and inform King David, for they could not be seen entering the city. But a lad did see them and informed Absalom. So the two of them left quickly and arrived at the house of a man in Bahurim. He had a well in his courtyard, so they went down into it. Then the woman took the cover and spread it over the well's mouth and scattered grain on top of it, so that nothing was noticeable. Then Absalom's servant came to the woman at the house and said, where are Ahimaaz and Jonathan? The woman said to them, they crossed over the brook of water. When they had searched and could not find them, they returned to Jerusalem. After they had departed, they came up from the well, then went and informed King David, telling David, get up and cross over the water immediately, for thus has Ahithophel counseled against you. Then David arose, and all the people who were with him, and they crossed over the Jordan. By morning light, not even one of them was left who had not crossed the Jordan. Now when Ahithophel saw that his counsel was not followed, he saddled his donkey, arose and went to his home in his hometown, set his house in order, and hanged himself. So he died and was buried in his father's tomb. David had reached Mahanaim by the time Absalom crossed the Jordan, he and all the men of Israel with him. Now Absalom had set Amasa over the army instead of Joab. Now Amasa was son of a man whose name was Ithra the Israelite, who had gone to Abigail, daughter of Nahash, sister to Zeruiah, Joab's mother. Israel and Absalom camped in the land of Gilead. Now when David reached Mahanaim, Shobi son of Nahash and Rabbah of the children of Ammon, Machir son of Amiel of Lo Debar, and Barzillai the Gileadite of Rogelim, brought beds, basins, clay pots, wheat, barley, flour, roasted grain, beans, lentils, parched seeds, honey, curd, sheep, and cheese, and from the herd for David and for the people who were with him to eat. For they said, the people must be hungry, weary, and thirsty in the wilderness.